won't be pleased to hear this, but there's nothing wrong with my heart. He ended up saying, I'll see you in a year. And that was the end of the visit. Came across this clip on Politico. I want to turn it into a video for you. Title, 55 Things to Know About J.D. Vance, Trump's VP Pick. Well, first of all, Trump didn't pick J.D. Vance. We never even heard of J.D. Vance, other than when Trump said that J.D. Vance is looking for his endorsement. That's when J.D. Vance was running for the Senate. And let's not forget, J.D. Vance was not mentioned on Trump's short listing for VPs. Donald Trump's pick for vice president made a 180-degree turn from fierce critic to bulldog surrogate from the former president. You know, what's interesting is he isn't the only one that made that 180-degree turn. Peter Thiel, the CEO of a number of companies, one being PayPal, said you'd have to put a gun to his head before he would vote for Donald Trump. Yet, he told Trump, I believe, to select J.D. Vance. Peter Thiel also gave J.D. Vance $15 million when he ran for the Senate in Ohio. So what that shows you is that those seats are usually bought. The whole thing is sickening. The whole system is totally screwed up. See a photograph of this guy. The guy looks scary. He's got the Napoleon syndrome. He's a short 5'7". This was written by Ian Ward, published on the 15th of July. Who is J.D. Vance really? That is the question that has dogged a 39-year-old senator from Ohio along his peculiar path to power, which began in 2016 with the publication of his best-selling memoir, Hillbilly Elegy, and culminated this week with former President Donald Trump selected him as a running mate for the 2024 election. Trump didn't select him. Peter Thiel told Trump to select him. During those 8 years, Vance had undergone a dramatic and, in the eyes of his critics, highly dubious political transformation from a blue-collared bard and self-described never-Trump conservative to hard-edged MAGA loyalist and dog defender of the former president. Vance says he's had a genuine change of heart about Trump. His critics say he cynically molded himself to the times. That's what I believe as well. Now, Vance is stepping into a role that has at times seemed unfillable. The political partner to a man who considers himself to be politically peerless. In the Senate, Vance has cultivated a dual identity as a key Trump ally and leader of the GOP populist national wing. But who will he be as vice presidential candidate? Question mark. Here, culled from his memoir, his writing and public remarks, his voluptuous tweets, and an extensive series of interviews he conducted with Political magazine earlier this year are some clues. 1. I'll be the first to admit that I've accomplished nothing great in my life, Vance wrote in the introduction of Hillbilly Elegy, his best-selling 206 memoir about his life growing up in a working-class family in post-industrial Ohio. I am not a senator, a governor, or a former cabinet secretary. I haven't started a billion-dollar company or a world-changing nonprofit. Well, you did try to do a nonprofit. You faked it, too. You never used the money that was collected for what it was intended to be collected for. You used it to pay those people that pushed you into the Senate. In 2015, 2 years earlier, graduating from Yale Law School, Vance joined Marathon Capital, a venture capital firm run by the Silicon Valley Sycom Peter Thiel. In 2016, he announced his plan to move back to Ohio from California to start our Ohio Renewal, a nonprofit dedicated to making it easier for disadvantaged children to achieve their dreams. Well, he never did that. Number 4. In November of 2022, He was elected to the U.S. Senate seat from Ohio with the help of over $10 million in donations from Thiel. It was his first public office. 5. On Monday, he was named Trump's running mate. 6. Reflecting on his first encounter with Thiel in 2011, Vance wrote, Thiel articulated a feeling that I was obsessed with achievement in itself, not as the end to something meaningful, but to win a social competition. My worry that I had prioritized striving over character took on heightened significance. Striving for what? ? He was born James Donald Bowman on August 2nd, 1984, in Middletown, Ohio, an industrial city 30 miles north of Cincinnati and 20 miles south of Dayton. 8. His maternal grandparents, Jim and Bonnie Vance, known as Pawa and Mawa, moved to Middletown in the late 1940s from Jackson, Kentucky, a town in the heart of southeastern Kentucky's coal region. Jim was 16, Bonnie was 13, and pregnant with Jim's child. They were unmarried at the time. 9. Vance is descendant from hillbilly royalty on his father's side. His grandfather's distant cousin, also named Jim Vance, married into the Hatfield family and is rumored to have committed the murder that instigated the legendary Hatfield and McCoy feud. That tells you all you need to know. 10. Vance's biological parents, Donald Bowman and Bev Vance, divorced when he was a toddler. He was later adopted by his mother's new husband, Bob Hamill, and changed his name to James David Hamill. The name change preserved his nickname, J.D. 11. Bev and Bob later divorced, and Bev struggled with drug addiction. Vance was raised primarily by his grandparents, who were, he wrote in Hillbilly Elegy, without question or qualification, the best thing that ever happened to me. 12. Ma and Pawa were Union Democrats, except in 1984, when Pawa voted for Ronald Reagan in Hillbilly Elegy. Vance described their political outlook as all politicians might be crooks. But if there were any exceptions, they are undoubtedly members of the Franklin Delano Roosevelt New Deal coalition. They were all crooks, and they still are all crooks. Growing up, Vance spent his summer vacations visiting his grandmother and extended family in Jackson. I was always distinguished my address from my home, he wrote in Hillbilly Elegy. My address was where I spent most of my time with my mother and sister, whenever that might be. But my home never changed, my great-grandmother's home, in the Holler in Jackson, Kentucky. 14. To understand me, you must understand that I am a Scottish-Irish hillbilly at heart, he wrote in Hillbilly Elegy. The Scottish-Irish legacy entailed many good traits, but also many bad ones. We do not like outsiders or people who are different from us, whether the difference lies in how they look, how they act, or most important, how they talk. You know, that says a lot right there. We do not like outsiders or people who are different from us, whether the difference lies in how they look, how they act, or most importantly, how they talk. How about how their political views are, huh? 15. After graduating from Middletown High School in 2003, enlisted in the Marine Corps and served in Iraq as a corporal with the Public Affairs Section of the 2nd Marine Aircraft Wing. I served my country honorably, and I saw when I went to Iraq that I had been lied to, that the promise of the foreign policy establishment were a complete joke, he had said. Why would he be a corporal in the Marines? He'd be an officer because he had a university education. No, that's not true here. Middletown High School. He was still in high school at that point. He graduated from Ohio University with a degree in political science and philosophy before enrolling at Yale Law School in 2010. That was number 16. 17. While at Yale, he attended a talk by Thiel about technological stagnation and the decline of American elites. He saw these two trends as connected. Vance later recalled of his first encounter with Thiel, if technological innovation were actually driving real prosperity, our elites wouldn't feel increasingly competitive with one another over a dwindling number of prestigious outcomes. Vance has called Thiel's talk the most significant moment of his time at Yale, 18. Vance began working on a memoir while at Yale at the suggestion of his mentor and battle hymn of the Tiger Mother author, Amy Chow. I thought the idea that I could write a meaningful book was kind of arrogant and presumptive, but then I started writing little things here and there, he has said, 19. Another significant moment of his time at Yale, meeting Usha Chalukria, his future wife, and the mother of his 3 children. The couple married in 214 and held a separate ceremony where they were blessed by a Hindu pundit. Oh, that's nice. They're blessed by a Hindu pundit. Chalukria went on to clerk for Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts and then D.C. Circuit Judge Brett Kavanaugh. She is now a litigator at the white shoe firm Munger, Tolles, and Olson. I joked with a buddy that if she had possessed a terrible personality, she would have made an excellent heroine in an N.A. Rand novel, but she had a great sense of humor, Vance wrote in his memoir. Despite her conservative clerkship, colleagues described her as liberal or moderate. Full-blown Democrats. 21. Vance's memoir, Hillbilly Elegy, was published on June 28, 2016. The book argued that the decline of post-industrial America was due in large part to the social pathologies of the white working class, rather than the decline of the industrial economy in the U.S. There's a lack of agency here in Middletown, a feeling that you have little control over your life and a willingness to blame everyone but yourself, Vance wrote. 22. In a review the New York Times called the book a compassionate, discerning sociological analysis of white underclass that helped drive the politics of rebellion, particularly the ascent of Donald J. Trump. 23. The American Conservative praised it as a powerful new memoir that uncovers that Americans may do not see. 24. The New Republic trashed it as little more than a list of myths about welfare queens, repackages a primer on a white working class. 25. During the 2016 election, Vance emerged as a vocal critic of Donald Trump. I'm a never Trump guy, he told Charlie Rose in October 2016. 26. My God, what an idiot, he tweeted about Trump that same month. 27. Trump is cultural heroin, he wrote in a story in The Atlantic. I think that he's noxious and is leading the white working class to a very dark place, he said on NPR. 28. I go back and forth between thinking Trump is a cynical asshole like Nixon, who wouldn't be that bad and might even be proved useful, or that he's America's Hitler, he wrote to a friend in February 2016. He ended up voting for independent Evan McMillan. 29. In 2019, Vance founded his own venture firm, Narnia, based in Ohio. Like Thiel's first Palantir, Narnia was named after a fictional object from J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings book. 30. During the Trump years, Vance says he came to support the Trump's policies and was radicalized by liberals' angry reaction to Trump. If you even acknowledge that there was reasonable thinking that Donald Trump was saying, this complete overreaction, he had said. 31. He was baptized into the Catholic Church. In August 2019, at the time he credited his conversion to his exposure, via Thiel, to the writing of the French philosopher René Girard, whom Thiel studied under Stanford University. Girard is most famous for his theory of metric desire, that human beings imitate the desires of their peers, ultimately giving rise to rivalries and violent conflicts that are resolved by scapegoating a common enemy. 32. Among his other current intellectual influences, Vance has cited the conservative local Rod Dreher, the reactionary blogger Curtis Verne, and the post-liberal Catholic philosopher Patrick Deneen. 33. He is thoroughly liberal in his instincts, a friend of Vance from Yale had said. I don't mean it as a slur, I mean it as a technical sense. He is skeptical of the political project of enlightenment, liberalism, like we're all just autonomous individuals trying to self-actualize and maximize our own interests. 34. He voted for Trump in 2020. 35. In November 2020, 1 week after the presidential election, Netflix released a film adaptation of Hillbilly Elegy directed by Ron Howard and starring Gabriel Basso as Vance, Glenn Close as Mama, and Amy Adams as Bev Vance. The movie was widely panned, with New Yorkers calling it a liberation fantasy. Friends of Vance have said that the negative reaction to the film was the last straw of Vance's estrangement from the elite liberal society. 36. On July 1st, 2021, Vance announced his Senate campaign in Ohio. Yeah, with $10 million from Thiel. 37. I regret being wrong about the guy, Vance said about Trump several days later on the campaign trail. I think he was a good president. I think he made a lot of good decisions for people. You mean like shutting down the economy? You mean like funding Warp Speed? You mean like funding Moderna to develop mRNA vaccine? You mean like those good decisions? And I think he took a lot of flack. He later added, he's the best president of my lifetime. 38. In April 2022, Rump was endorsed Vance. JD is kissing my ass and wants my support so bad, Trump later said. That wasn't that long ago. 39. Vance's primary supporter inside Trump world was Donald J. Trump Jr., his most prominent supporter in the conservative media, Tucker Carlson. His biggest donor, Peter Thiel, to the tune of $10 million. 40. I don't know that I can disrespect someone more than J.D. Vance, Mitt Romney told his biographer in 2022, as Vance was running for the Senate. 41. In November 8, 2022, Vance beat Democratic Congressman Tim Ryan 53% to 47%, underperforming other statewide Republicans by 11 points. It's amazing what $10 million will do, isn't it? 42. In his victory speech, he thanked his Mau. You're not always going to agree with every vote that I take, and you're not going to agree with every single amendment that I offer in the United States Senate. But I will never forget the woman who raised me, he told the audience. What's that got to do with anything? I will never forget the woman that raised me. And then he talks about we're not going to always agree with every vote that he takes. 43. In the Senate, he has emerged as a dog defender Trump and a standard bearer of the new rights, a loose movement of young conservatives trying to push the Republican Party in a more populist, nationalist, and culturally conservative direction. 44. His most ambitious legislative initiatives have risen from partnerships with progressive Democrats, a sweeping railway safety reform bill co-authored by Senator Sherman Brown, Democrat, Ohio, an executive pay clawback provision drafted by Senator Elizabeth Warren, Democrat, Massachusetts. Neither bill has received a vote on the Senate floor. So he partnered with both of those Democrats to try to get those bills passed. And you tell me he's a Republican, right? 45. He is a leading critic of U.S. support for Ukraine. I got to be honest with you. I don't really care what happens to Ukraine one way or the other, Vance told Steve Bannon in an interview in 2022. 46. He has suggested that the Biden administration is allowing fentanyl to cross the southern border as part of a deliberate strategy to kill Republican voters. If you want to kill a bunch of MAGA voters in the middle of the heartland, how better than to target them and their kids with a deadly fentanyl? It does look intentional. It's like Joe Biden wants to punish the people who didn't vote for him. Now, the concern I have with that is I don't believe that most people that are addicted to drugs are Republicans. I think they're Democrats. 47. In June 2023, he put a hold on all Biden administration appointments to the Justice Department to protest the indictment of Donald Trump. He has called Trump's hush money trial in New York a threat to American democracy. 48. He believes that the culture war is a class war that punishes back against the cultural values of progressive elitists as necessary to advance the economic and political interests of the working class. In the Senate, his culture war initiatives include a bill criminalizing gender-affirming care for transgender kids, a ban on federal mask mandates, and a crackdown on affirmative action policies at colleges and universities. He publicly supports the 15-week abortion ban, with exceptions for rape, incest, and threats to the life of the mother. 49. He opposes the PRO Act, the holy grail for pro-union labor reform. 50. He has compared the current movement in American history to the end of the Roman Republic. We are in a late Republican period in America, he said on a podcast appearance in 2022. If we're going to push back against it, we're going to have to get pretty wild and pretty far out there and go in the directions that a lot of conservatives right now are uncomfortable with. That says a lot right there. 51. He has said that if he had been in Mike Pence's shoes in 2021, he would not have certified the results of the 2020 election. If I had been vice president, I would have told the states like Pennsylvania, Georgia, and so many others that we need to have multiple slates of vectors, and I think the U.S. Congress should have fought over it, he said in February. 52. He has encouraged Trump to defy the Supreme Court if the justices prevent him from firing executive branch officials. 53. He's by far the smartest and the deepest of any senator I've ever met, Tucker Carlson has said. 54. I'm sure he'll run for the presidency one day, said Bannon. 55. Trump will, at most, serve 4 years in the White House, Vance has said. There's a big question about what comes after him. I don't see any question at all. Do you? I'll attach the link, pass it along, and thanks for listening.